Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is James Yates. I'm the Chief Executive of the World Federation for Animals. And the WFA is a global collaboration of leading animal protection organisations from across the globe. We're organised by NGOs to help us all advocate effectively for policies to protect animal welfare worldwide. And today we are here to celebrate World Animal Day, a day in which we give visibility to all different animals and their individual intrinsic value. And to do so, we have gathered here today inspiring voices from the global south and north. These experts have led the design or reforms of local, national, regional, and international policies to make the world a better place for animals. We'll dive into their experiences and decode how policymaking can help us drive systemic transformation and long lasting improvements for animals' well-being. The conversations today are also an opportunity to connect with each other and to learn from good practices how to overcome the structural challenges that we all face. And we also hope that all of you joining us today leave our event feeling motivated and empowered in your involvement in policy processes on behalf of all animals. Our conversations today will be largely, but not only, in English. So please choose if you wish to listen in French or Spanish or English using the interpretation button below. And this event is being recorded and will be shared on our YouTube channel after the event. And please do tweet throughout the session using the World Fed for Animals handle and hashtag World Animal Day. And please drop questions into the Q&A box and we will answer them today or get back to you afterwards. So I'll briefly introduce our wonderful panelists together. We'll then have a conversation during the first hour and then questions and panel answers in the last half hour. So the Honourable Gabadati is a long-standing member of the House of Representatives in Nigeria, a previous House Majority Whip and member of the House Committee on Solid Minerals with legislative interests in criminal justice, money bills and environmental legislation. And Sylvia will share longer biographies in the chat. Loïc Dombreval is a former mayor, veterinarian, SPA national administrator, regional councillor, member of the French Parliament, parliamentary rapporteur on animal welfare, and prime ministerial appointment on the welfare of pets and equines. Andrea Padilla is Senator of Colombia and former councillor of Bogota. She is a doctor of law, a university professor, a multi-author, animal rights activist, media columnist, and promoter of citizen participation. Tilly Metz is a member of the European Parliament with many roles, including on the Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development, Shadow Rapporteur on the Farm to Fork strategy, President of the Animal Welfare Intergroup, and also roles in international relations. And Santiago Wills is a former ambassador and permanent representative to the World Trade Organization and chair of the WTO negotiating group on rules, including the fisheries subsidies negotiations, as well as previous co-chair of the Fisheries Committee of the Organization of for Economic Cooperation and Development in Paris. Wow. So now please join me in giving a warm virtual welcome to our such amazing colleagues here. Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining what is going to be an exceptional event because of your input. So let us start. And dear panelists, in this first block, we will talk about the key initiatives and challenges that we've faced. We each have 6 minutes each, but I will try and help by telling you when that time is up. And I'd like to start with you, please, Senadora Padilla. Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Buenos días. Es realmente un placer tenerla aquí con nosotros en este evento de hoy. ¿Nos puede contar brevemente más de usted y de las principales iniciativas que ha liderado o apoyado en su carrera para avanzar la protección animal, por favor?
James, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me at this great panel. Y gracias por permitirme hablar en español para poder llegar a una audiencia hispanohablante. Soy efectivamente actualmente senadora de Colombia. Creo que soy la primera senadora que llega a este cargo de elección popular con una agenda exclusivamente centrada en la defensa de los animales. Fui antes concejal de Bogotá, la capital de Colombia, también con esta agenda de los derechos de los animales, hablando propiamente de derechos, ni siquiera solo de bienestar o de protección, sino de derechos propiamente. Antes, pues mi carrera la desarrollé propiamente como académica, siempre he trabajado en universidades o he sido estudiante. Recientemente terminé mi tesis de doctorado en Derecho, que se titula, ya es un libro publicado, se titula Derecho Sintiente, los animales no humanos en el derecho latinoamericano, y es un compendio de cómo se está construyendo este derecho de los animales no humanos, un derecho emergente en América Latina a partir de sentencias judiciales. Actualmente, como senadora, pues tengo una ambiciosa agenda legislativa que pasa por la prohibición de la exportación de ganado en pie, por la transición de zoológicos a santuarios o refugios de fauna, por la prohibición de espectáculos crueles con animales. Lamentablemente, Colombia es uno de los países que más abundancia de espectáculos crueles tiene todo el año en todo el país, corridas de toros, peleas de gallos, corralejas, etc. También estamos buscando el inicio de la eliminación del uso de jaulas en las prácticas pecuarias, tal vez una de las luchas más difíciles que vamos a dar. En Colombia, la actividad pecuaria todavía no contempla ni siquiera conceptos mínimos de bienestar animal. Estamos buscando también que la actividad de las rescatistas en Colombia, que son miles de mujeres, sea reconocida y apoyada. Y en fin, James, no me quiero extender porque sé que el tiempo es limitado. Simplemente contarles que mi trabajo es académico y político por la defensa de los derechos de los animales en Colombia, y espero también que algo de esto se pueda extender a América Latina.
Gracias. Y ¿podría contarnos más de cómo logró desincentivar las corridas de toros en Bogotá? ¿Qué desafíos encontró y qué enfoques tomó para superarlos? Por favor.
Sí, James, acabar con las corridas de toros en Bogotá fue una de las luchas jurídicas más interesantes que dimos hace 2 años, siendo yo concejal de Bogotá. Bogotá tiene una de las plazas de corridas de toros más importante de América Latina. La Plaza de Toros La Santa María, la Plaza de Toros de México han sido siempre reconocidas como las más grandes de la región. En Colombia, la única corporación que puede prohibir las corridas de toros es el Congreso, el Parlamento. Pero contábamos con una sentencia de la Corte Constitucional que decía que las corridas de toros se podían hacer, pero eliminando las conductas más crueles contra los animales y reconociendo en todo caso que son prácticas crueles que los gobiernos deben ir desincentivando o desestimulando, no sé cuál sea más fácil de traducir al inglés. En ese sentido, nosotros hicimos uso de un concepto muy importante en la Constitución Política de Colombia, que es la autonomía territorial y el principio legal del rigor subsidiario. Ese principio establece que los entes territoriales, los gobiernos locales, sean municipales o departamentales, pueden hacer más estrictas las leyes ambientales dentro de su propia jurisdicción. Tienen autonomía para tomar una ley ambiental y hacerla mucho más estricta. Nosotros hicimos uso de estos dos conceptos, autonomía territorial y principio de rigor subsidiario, y establecimos unas condiciones para hacer corridas de toros en Colombia, eliminando los instrumentos que hirieran a los animales, prohibiendo la muerte del animal en el espectáculo, aumentando la carga de impuestos, prohibiendo el ingreso de menores de edad, prohibiendo el ingreso de consumo y venta de alcohol. Y todos esos elementos hicieron que el espectáculo fuera de muy poco interés para los organizadores. Gracias a eso, este año, por primera vez en toda la historia de Bogotá, la licitación pública quedó desierta, porque ningún organizador encontró interesante hacer corridas de toros bajo estas condiciones. En ese sentido, no prohibimos porque no teníamos la competencia legal para hacerlo, pero sí desincentivamos y encontramos este camino jurídico que finalmente nos permitió una conclusión material, que fue no tener corridas de toros. De igual modo, logramos prohibir las ventas de animales en las plazas de mercado, haciendo uso de una pequeña disposición que había en una norma sanitaria que prohibía tener animales vivos en lugares donde se producen, tienen y comercializan alimentos. Hicimos uso, por supuesto, de todo el discurso de la pandemia, ¿no? Por el wet market en el que surgió el COVID-19, y logramos prohibir el comercio de animales en plazas de mercado, James.
Muchas gracias, senadora. Enfoques legales muy inteligentes y el éxito. Gracias.
Gracias, James.
And if I can turn now, Honourable Garbadati, to you, please. Again, for the audience to get to know you further, it would be great if you could briefly tell us, please, Honourable Garbadati, a bit more about yourself and share with us an overview of the main initiative for animals that you've led in your career, please. Honourable Garbadati, I think you're muted. I just want to check.
Hello.
Perfect.
Okay. My name is Honorable Garbadati Mohammed, member of House of Representatives of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I was 62 yesterday, and I've been to the parliament 4 times, and we are going for another election next year, God's willing. So presently, I'm the chairman of Committee of Marine Transport in the House of Representatives. And I started my own project on animal welfare with specific interests in donkeys. So initially when I started, it was just out of compassion, because the way the animals have been transported and treated was very cruel and barbaric. So it was later I now researched and found out what exactly are these people taking this animal that has to be transported for almost 2 days from the northern part of Nigeria to the southern part. It was later we found out about Egeo in China. So the Chinese are now all over the world looking for donkey skin to satisfy their domestic market for Egeo. So I brought a bill in this respect. In 2018, there was we had public hearing in November in 2019, which are some of the international NGOs like the Donkey Sanctuary were there live to make presentation and to support our cause. I started as a lone crusader, but later we found a lot of people are joining us, very prominent people in this fight to preserve this animal, because the animal is facing extinction. In Nigeria, the population used to be about 3 million donkeys, but now it has been decimated to just about 700,000 or so. And there is naturally, or normally in Nigeria, there is no serious legislation that has to do to protect animal and animal welfare. The legislation we have on ground are the ones enacted by the colonial masters in 1916 in the southern part of the country and 1963 in the northern part. That's the penal code and the criminal code of South and the North. So generally, the attitude of animal welfare is not well grounded here in Africa, especially in Nigeria. Nobody cares. People just look at animals as animals. So as animal does deserve any form of protection. So we brought this bill. It was unanimously passed in the House of Representatives because we practice a bicameral legislator. It has to go to the Senate for concurrence. It has been in the Senate for almost 3 years. Personally, I met the Senate president to plead with him to pass, but later another senator who was the Senate leader presented another bill, which is almost similar to our bill, but the intention is to water down the strong response that our bill now, that is in our bill. So I wrote a personal letter to the speaker that this is against the legislative practice. And we are on it. So when we started, we are so innocent, not knowing that this thing involves a lot of cartels, that is now a very strong business that's involved in people in the high places. So while we are battling July this year, and they try to water, although their findings have not been submitted to the Senate to harmonize the two bills. So while this, while we are looking at it from that angle, I also use another opportunity to make contact with the executive branch of government. I met the then Minister of Environment, now Minister of Agri, Dr. Mahmoud Mohammed. And later I met also the Minister and Attorney General and Minister of Justice of Nigeria to make them enact an executive order by the president. Because I told him, based on our effort in the extraordinary meeting of high-level ministerial meeting in Cote d'Ivoire in September 21st, 2021, it was unanimously agreed and signed by all the ministers that animal welfare should be given priority, and especially the killing of donkeys. So we have gone a long way. We have a federal structure here. We have the federal government, we have the state government and the local government. So some of the people, their argument is that this issue should be allowed to be handled by local government. We said no. because it involves the exportation of donkey skin, its carcass, and other derivatives that is derived from the donkey. So, and the Nigerian Constitution is very clear in the exclusive legislative list, section 62, subsection 1A, that clearly place the legislation on exports on the National Assembly. So this is how far we have gone. We are making advocacy. We are enlightening people through media. We have been very tenacious in our pursuit of this animal, because we try to show to them that even the best research institutes in the world have done research on this animal, and the breeding is so difficult. You cannot multiply it the way you multiply production animal. This is a working animal. So we are pursuing it both within the executive branch and at the legislative level. As late as last week, I was able to meet the Chairman Committee on Agri Resources of the Senate to give him more details, to enlighten him more, to make him understand the dangers. And so we are confronted with so many issues because the elites or the exploitative class that are involved in the trade are trying to tell us that this is an economic issue. We said, no, this is not an economic issue because it's an unequal trade between the exploitative and the dominant donkey skin traders and the rural people who doesn't even know their rights. So it's an unequal business, and Nigeria stands to get nothing from this business, but the rural communities are definitely being the victims that their donkeys have been deflated in large numbers, because most people in rural areas, especially in the northern part of the country, rely on this animal for their own economic activity. So without it, I'm sure it will affect those communities negatively. So apart, okay.
I was only going to say, Honourable Gabardati, we've used up the time on this section.
Oh, okay.
I'm very happy for you to wrap up, or I'll move on. It's hard because it's really interesting and important work, and the connection to the local communities, absolutely, as well. We'll come back to it. So
okay.
If it's okay with you, I will move on to the next speaker as we go round, and then we'll come back to you afterwards.
Yeah, it's okay with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Amazing. And happy birthday.
Okay, thank you.
So I will then move on, please, to Monsieur Dromeval. Bonjour. Pourriez-vous nous en dire plus sur vous et partager un aperçu des principales initiatives pour les animaux que vous avez menées ou sont soutenues pour les animaux dans votre carrière, s'il vous plaît?
Bonjour et merci à toutes et à tous. Merci en particulier à James, mon confrère vétérinaire, de m'accueillir aujourd'hui, et à Sylvia Mantilla pour le travail qu'elle a fait dans cette organisation. Félicitations pour cette initiative du World Federation for Animals qui a 2 ans maintenant, je crois, et qui est une initiative extrêmement importante. Je pense qu'on aura l'occasion d'en reparler. Je vais vous présenter d'abord mes excuses parce que je m'exprime en français et je ne fais pas l'effort de James pour parler dans la langue internationale qui est l'anglais. Mais je préférais, on en avait convenu, parler ainsi en français pour être plus clair et plus précis. Alors, moi, je suis vétérinaire de formation. Je suis sorti de l'école vétérinaire en 1990, ça fait plus de 30 ans. J'ai exercé le métier de vétérinaire. J'ai également entré en politique. Je suis entré en politique en tant que maire d'une commune d'environ 20 000 habitants qui est située dans le sud de la France, près de Nice. Et en tant que maire de cette commune de Vence, j'ai pris un certain nombre de dispositions en faveur des animaux. Il s'agissait en particulier de l'interdiction sur le territoire de la commune de la présence de cirques avec animaux sauvages, en prenant un arrêté municipal. J'ai également beaucoup œuvré avec les associations de protection animale basées sur la commune de Vence, notamment sur celles qui avaient pour mission de capturer et de stériliser les chats errants, qui sont ces chats errants extrêmement nombreux en France. Et puis ensuite, j'ai été élu député au Parlement français. Et dans le cadre de ce mandat de député, qui dure 5 ans en France, eh bien, j'ai été nommé par le Premier ministre en mission gouvernementale, c'est-à-dire que j'ai été extrait pendant 6 mois du Parlement pour mener cette mission sur le bien-être des animaux de compagnie et le bien-être des chevaux. Il y a en France de nombreux problèmes liés à la fin de vie des chevaux. Et puis, ensuite, après cette mission, j'ai été nommé rapporteur général d'une loi contre la maltraitance animale qui a été votée à l'unanimité, moins une voix, à la fois au Sénat et à l'Assemblée nationale, une loi contre la maltraitance animale qui, on va le voir après, a apporté un certain nombre d'améliorations dans la question animale en France. Voilà très rapidement brossé mon portrait, cher James.
Merci beaucoup. Et aussi, pourriez-vous nous en dire plus sur l'interdiction des animaux sauvages dans les cirques ou une autre de ces initiatives? Quels défis avez-vous rencontrés? Quelles approches avez-vous prises pour les surmonter?
Oui, alors de nombreux défis, de nombreux obstacles, de façon absolument certaine. Il a fallu beaucoup d'énergie avec mes collègues parlementaires pour faire voter cette loi. En tant que maire, quand j'ai pris un arrêté contre la présence de cirques avec animaux sauvages, j'ai connu un premier obstacle qui était celui du préfet. Le préfet contrôle la validité réglementaire et législative des arrêtés qui sont pris par les maires. Et en l'occurrence, en France aujourd'hui encore, les arrêtés municipaux, les arrêtés des maires interdisant la présence de cirques avec animaux sauvages sont des arrêtés qui sont illégaux. Le préfet m'a donc demandé, quand il a lu mon arrêté, de l'annuler, ce que j'ai refusé. Et finalement, je me suis rendu compte qu'après avoir refusé de modifier cet arrêté, eh bien, lui-même n'a pas fait l'effort non plus de le reprendre, de le supprimer. Et je crois qu'il n'a pas osé en fait le supprimer parce qu'il savait bien, et ils savent bien, ces préfets, que la condition animale est une question qui, et l'attention qui est portée aux animaux est une question qui monte très fortement en France. Quand j'ai été député ensuite et que j'ai soutenu cette loi contre la maltraitance animale, je me suis rendu compte à quel point il y avait un décalage entre les attentes de la population, la déclaration des populations, des citoyens français sur l'importance que revêtait la question animale et en réalité cette prise en compte, la prise en compte de cette question par les élus et par les députés en particulier. Il faut le reconnaître, et c'est vrai dans tous les pays, il y a un poids des lobbies qui est extrêmement important dans notre pays, c'est vrai dans tous les pays au monde, et en particulier du lobby de la chasse et du lobby de l'agriculture. Je dis les choses très clairement. Et donc, pour contourner ces obstacles, eh bien, il a fallu à la fois accepter le principe de transition, d'évolution progressive, sans doute lente, même si ce sont des avancées, mais d'évolution progressive, de transition et pas de rupture brutale. Il a fallu aussi centrer cette loi contre la maltraitance animale autour de deux grandes thématiques qui sont le renforcement des sanctions pénales en cas de maltraitance, la question de l'animal de compagnie, beaucoup plus consensuelle que la question des animaux sauvages, de la chasse ou de l'agriculture ou de l'élevage, et puis autour de l'animal sauvage en captivité. Et donc en contournant effectivement les lobbies et le poids qu'ils ont dans les assemblées, eh bien, nous avons réussi à avoir une loi qui est certes incomplète, mais qui, en tout cas, sur les sujets des sanctions pénales, de l'animal de compagnie et de l'animal sauvage en captivité, ont permis de vraies améliorations. Il a fallu évidemment aussi convaincre un par un tous les élus de l'Assemblée nationale et du Sénat, quel que soit leur groupe politique, leur appartenance politique, donc aller parler à des parlementaires, et c'est la moindre des choses sur un sujet comme la condition animale qui sont des députés et des sénateurs qui sont en dehors de notre propre appartenance politique. Et puis enfin, il a fallu s'associer très fortement avec des associations, avec les fondations de protection animale qui nous ont soutenus très massivement dans les médias. Voilà un petit peu très rapidement comment est-ce qu'on s'y est pris pour faire avancer la condition animale en France l'année dernière.
Merci beaucoup. C'est 6 minutes exactement. Nous allons demander des questions des organisations des animaux. Donc, nous avons devoir finir. Merci beaucoup. And Ms. Metz, if I can turn to you, please. Again, could you just tell us a little more about yourself and share with us an overview of the many initiatives you've pushed in your career, please?
Thank you very much. And also from my side, thank you very much for the invitation on this World Animal Day, and also to gather such different people. I find it really, really interesting. And I also have already questions to my colleagues that presented so far. So I'm a member of the European Parliament. I'm coming from Luxembourg. I'm a member of the Greens EFA party. And yes, your questions, what did I do mainly? So I restrict on, since I'm a member of the European Parliament, I was also mayor before, so I have also a lot of sympathy with those who exercise that. Also be a mayor of a rural municipality, you have also a lot of contact with different people, like for example the hunters, which is not always easy. So but as member of the European Parliament, I was, when I arrived in July 2018, I immediately tried to advocate and support strongly in my country, but not only in my country, also at the EU level, of course, the end the cage age. So the fact that we take the farmed animals out of their small cages, would it be rabbits, but also, of course, poultry or pigs, which are in this intensive farming methods, the biggest parts, but we could also mention the calves, for example, also the biggest parts of their life in very small cages. So this was a European citizens initiative where we had to gather more than 1 million signatures in 7 different countries, and we collected 1.4 million signatures. So that's why also the Commission, when you have more than 1 million signatures, then has to react on this European Citizens Initiative. And so the Commission, so the EU Commission is really like the government of the European Union, promised in June 2021 to end the cage farming in agriculture by 2027. So that was one of my points. Another point I wanted to say, I was also a rapporteur for the Greens of one of the files of the Common Agricultural Policies. And there I insisted that there were possibilities also in the Common Agricultural Policy for more animal welfare in general for animals in farms, so that the farmers get also money when they do more for animal welfare. And then thirdly, I was chair of the inquiry committee that was installed for more than 1.5 years, an inquiry committee on the protection of animals during transport, because you know that millions of animals are transported not only throughout Europe, from Romania down to Italy or wherever, but also 10% of these animals are also transported outside the European Union, to Lebanon, to North Africa, to a lot of different places, Turkey, and then the trip goes on. So that is an important issue. So, and there we made a report, and we also made recommendation end of 2021. And now what we have on the base of this report and this recommendation, that the existing regulation from 2005 has to be revised based on these recommendations. Of course, as an animal defender, these recommendations are not going far enough. We wanted, for example, a clear ban of the transport of live animals outside the EU. We wanted clearly for all the animals, not only the animals that are going to be slaughtered, but also the animals that are for other purposes fattening. And so we wanted a clear limit of the duration of transport to 8 hours. We wanted also for all unweaned animals clearer measures. It is a step forward what we have to this recommendation, but it certainly did not go as far enough as we wanted. So the fight is not over, because what is important now is the revision that the Commission has to propose, the revision of this regulation on the protection of animals during transport, which is still to come in 2023. Another cause I'm really fighting a lot, and especially this year, is really the animal testing issue. You know, animals are used massively in research and also for testing toxicity, but also by the pharma industry. So, and this animal testing, and raise awareness that today we have more efficient methods of testing than testing on animals. As I always say, we human beings are not 80-kilo weight rats. So there are today a lot of more efficient methods that exist, so the so-called NAMs, so new alternative methodologies that exist where you don't need to use animals and that are, as I say, more efficient. So we had in September 2021, the Parliament adopted a resolution where clearly was again the goal of phasing out animal testing. But now words are always nice to have, but now we need concrete acts, and we need concrete a roadmap, a timeline, where we start and how can we reduce progressively. I know it's not going to happen during the night. I know we need to see it progressively, and that also the regulations have to change for that. For example, for the authorization of chemicals, etc. But we need to make it clear, and that's what we expect now from the European Commission to do, a clear roadmap how to phase out animal testing. And then let me also make some publicity for the European Citizen Initiative, where every people can sign also, because also there we need a lot of signatures to end fur in Europe, so to end fur farms in Europe. And then I'm looking, of course, to the World Trade Organization, because it's not so easy to ban something in Europe, which is, of course, also then what we want is to ban also then the import of fur in Europe. So voilà, that is the main topics I'm working on. I worked and I'm working on right now still.
Thank you, Tilia, and thank you also, well, both for the range of amazing work, past and present, but also for the connection to the next speaker. That's perfect, and for the wrapping up at the end. So thank you very much, and I will turn now, please, to Santiago. So, Senor Wills, would you please just say a bit more about yourself as well, and particularly an overview of the key initiative of the WTO fisheries subsidies negotiation, please?
Absolutely, James. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure sharing this time and this panel with such distinguished guests today. And I must say that I had the privilege to listen first to everyone, but it was a bit humbling to see how many successful initiatives there's been and how they've pursued these initiatives for the animal protection. So it's really a pleasure to be here, James. Thank you. Y de antemano una disculpa a los hispanoparlantes por el tema que voy a tocar. Quisiera tratarlo en inglés, que ha sido como se desarrollaron las negociaciones, por lo cual es más fácil, en vez de traducir todos los conceptos, simplemente referirme a ellos en el idioma. Well, as you mentioned, James, my name is Santiago Wills. Up until 4 days ago, so that's last Friday, I was the ambassador and permanent representative of Colombia to the World Trade Organization. As ambassador and PR of Colombia, I was selected also as the chair of the negotiating group on rules of the organization that for the past 3 years we've been dealing under my chairship with the fisheries subsidies negotiations that I'll go a little bit more into detail in a few seconds. A little bit about myself. I'm a lawyer by training. I've always been passionate about animal protection and animal rights. I haven't had the chance to do much in that respect until very recently, but under my own initiative and with my wife, of course, we did start a little foundation in Colombia before traveling to Geneva. We would rescue dogs from a Caribbean island of Colombia called San Andres to bring them back to continental Colombia, find them homes. And that was due mainly because we saw how badly the dogs were treated in San Andres. So the first thing we did was we rescued one dog and we kept her with all her puppies. Now she's here in Geneva with us. So it's completely change of life for her from the streets of San Andres to the Swiss Alps. So you can tell she's pretty happy. But that sort of triggered our initiative to start doing this for other dogs, taking them to Bogota, to Medellin, to Bucaramanga. So that's a bit of myself. And I'll just jump straight into your second question, James, on the initiative that I've been pursuing for a while. And this is precisely the fisheries subsidies negotiations. Now we can call it the fisheries subsidies agreement of the World Trade Organization. And that's something that we've been celebrating since June this year. So as I was saying, on my side, I wasn't able to do much before, but 3 years ago, I was granted the opportunity to make a contribution to the world, in this case to the fisheries sector. That was when the membership of the organization selected me to preside those negotiations. So this was in November 2019. So what are those negotiations? What am I talking about in fisheries subsidies negotiations? These are estimates, of course, but it is estimated that around $35 billion are granted in subsidies to fishing a year worldwide. And out of those $35 billion, it's estimated that around $22 billion are harmful fisheries subsidies. So why harmful? Because it enables overfishing, it enables overcapacity, it ends up in the hands of some of the fishers that are engaged in illegal fishing, for instance, or other types of illegal activities on the sea. So this is why this is considered to be harmful fisheries subsidies. So our mandate in the WTO was to negotiate an agreement that would eliminate and prohibit those harmful subsidies to the fishing sector. The negotiations have been ongoing for 21 years. This is already crazy. 21 years negotiating how to deal with the fisheries subsidies and to eliminate those harmful subsidies. On 2019, I jumped into this boat of the negotiations with a task of concluding those negotiations soon. And I remember when I first sat with the 164 governments here in Geneva, and I said, okay, guys, what do we have to do now to conclude this in 1 year, 2 years? And they all said, yeah, Chair, maybe we should move into text-based negotiations. So let's find the text and negotiate the text after 18 years of negotiations. And I said, sure, I love it. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I'm used to working with contracts, with documents, with texts. what text should we use? No, there's no text. So after 18 years, there were just proposals and proposals and proposals. So the first task was to bring everything into a compiled text and then treat that text with a lot of discipline so that it doesn't become, again, an unreadable, just compilation of proposals. Long story short, because I know that my time is running up, through the past 3 years, through COVID, through international conflict, serious international conflict this year, under the rule of consensus, so we basically had to have 164 governments saying yes to what was being negotiating. We managed on the 17th of June to conclude the fisheries subsidies negotiations into getting a fisheries agreement. This is huge. So what does the agreement do? Tackle the subsidies granted to those engaged in illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. Subsidies that goes to fishing stocks that are already overfished. And it tackles indirectly as well some of the subsidies that are granted and that create overcapacity in the fishing sector. So again, long story short, we now have a multilateral, binding, enforceable agreement between 164 members of the WTO on fisheries subsidies. So this is it for now. Maybe afterwards I can go a little bit more in detail, but I don't want to use all of the remaining time of my colleagues. So thanks again, James.
Thank you very much, and perfect timing, Senor Wells. So, and it is really hard on each of those. There's, as Tilly said, there's so many additional questions, and it's so interesting and amazing, all the work. But we ought to move on. We're just perfect on timing if we're short on the next section. So thank you very much. And we've heard about a variety of issues at different stages and scales and such compassion and commitment. And I wanted to ask a bit more about collaboration on it as well, which a couple of you mentioned, partly because our members are animal protection organisations. So I did want to ask you each about the role of non-governmental organisations, NGOs, just very briefly, a couple of minutes each. And maybe to start with you, Senor Wells, with the fisheries negotiations, that's a big international technical process. So how did animal protection organisations and civil society get involved in those and turn them into an agreement?
Thanks, James. Well, in my case, I must say that it was a fundamental element of the negotiations. So usually in the organization, all negotiations are only dealt with by the members, or the states, the governments in the WTO, and there's little effect of what's happening outside. So for 20 years, we've been able to create this bubble that I'm not very keen of. So since I took the chairship of the negotiations, I started speaking directly with a lot of the civil society, so NGOs, think tanks, and they were very helpful in, I would say, many elements, but I would highlight two. One, in putting all the pressure into governments so that they conclude an agreement that had sustainability elements, and in this case, the protection of the fisheries stocks as the core element of the agreement, negotiated in an organization that traditionally has been focused solely on trade. So it was a lot of pressure put on governments from the NGOs, from the civil society. The other element was that also part of the civil society, think tanks, they were helping members, the governments, in understanding the technicalities of what was being discussed and how the science operated behind the scenes in developing the information to assess the stocks, the fish stocks that we're trying to protect. So it was a double participation, of course, not on the table in the negotiations, because that's not how the WTO works, but from the outside, they were helping governments understand what we tried to do, maintaining our ambition throughout the negotiations, and putting a lot of pressure on governments in Geneva, but also in capitals to conclude the negotiations as soon as possible. And I think it really was an outstanding work that the organizations did. And I must say, a big thanks to, there was a specific coalition that I'm pretty sure many of the members of WFA are part of, that it was called the Coalition of Stop Funding Overfishing. 190 something organizations that did a brilliant job.
Thank you, and good shout out. Thank you. And again, we'll turn to each of you on this question. So, Senadora Padilla, ¿qué han hecho específicamente las organizaciones protectoras de animales para ayudarle a sacar estas iniciativas adelante? ¿Hay algo que destacaría como especialmente útil o contraproducente, por favor?
Sí, James, muy interesante esta pregunta porque no ha sido un apoyo pacífico. Cuando se hacen planteamientos de bienestar, no propiamente de derechos, por ejemplo, de regulaciones, no así de prohibiciones, o de transiciones progresivas, no de medidas inmediatas, puede haber resistencia en algunos sectores y organizaciones defensoras de los derechos de los animales que consideran imprudente esa propuesta que se está tramitando. A veces no se entiende que en política tenemos que avanzar progresivamente e estar dispuestos a hacer acuerdos con sectores políticos que nos conduzcan a medidas reglamentarias, no necesariamente prohibicionistas, pero que nos permitan ir avanzando en el propósito de reducir sufrimiento animal y salvar vidas. Entonces, no siempre ha sido un apoyo pacífico. Sin embargo, ha sido muy importante la movilización de organizaciones defensoras de animales que estén allí con su activismo, que contacten a los otros congresistas o a los otros políticos de otros partidos para que le hagan sentir que no es un tema de una congresista o de una concejal, sino que es un tema que tiene un fuerte respaldo de la opinión pública y de la ciudadanía. Ahora, precisamente, quisiera hacerle una pregunta a Santiago y a Tili sobre este tema, porque sí hemos necesitaremos muchísimo el apoyo de organizaciones internacionales. Colombia es un país que todavía responde mucho a la presión internacional y que puede avanzar más cuando percibe que los temas que estamos intentando poner en la agenda están avanzando en otros países. Entonces sería muy importante, ahora creo que va a haber una oportunidad de hacer estas preguntas, pero en concreto, James, ha sido un apoyo importante por la movilización ciudadana, también por conceptos que se han puesto, digamos, en defensa, como el de una sola salud, un solo bienestar, que se han puesto en la agenda, haciendo esta salvedad, y es que no siempre ha sido un apoyo pacífico.
Muchas gracias. And I'll say in English, we'll take that question. I might save that for the panel discussion, so we can be asking each other there, and just stick on animal protection organisations for now, because I know, Honourable Garbadati, you mentioned Donkey Sanctuary, and I know other WFA members and other NGOs have helped as well. So again, I know they've done lots, but could you briefly just expand on key ways they've been helpful for you, please?
Yeah, as I said, when we presented the bill, I don't know how the donkeys actually got to know about it, and they now use they got my email and send it that they want to come for public hearing in Nigeria whenever the public hearing will take place. So when the date was fixed by the Committee on Agriculture, we now send it to them that this is the date, and graciously they came to Nigeria to give us their support. In fact, in 2019, they came to Nigeria purposely just to launch their own magazine for that year. So they have been giving us a lot of support. Apart from that, we are a network for animal welfare, especially the Chief Executive Officer, Jasfat Ngonyo, and the Brooks Action for Working Donkeys for working donkeys, mules, and other equine animals. Have also been very, very supportive. They came. The donkey sanctuary, in fact, they always draw our attention because there was a time the Director General of Quarantine Services gave the skin dealers, donkey skin dealers, the green light that they can continue with their business. So it was the donkey sanctuary that drew my attention, which immediately I linked up with the Minister of Agriculture and I told him what is happening, and I sent to him, and he acted immediately by arresting 2 Chinese nationals and also suspending the Director of Quarantine. So I can say that they have been very helpful in this drive to actualize that the prohibition and the killing of donkeys in Nigeria and other African countries.
Perfect, thank you. Thank you. It sounds like instrumental in
Yes.
identifying the issue and then in tackling it as well. And if I can move to Monsieur Dromeval,
Yes.
please. La même question. Avez-vous des exemples de ce que les organisations de protection des animaux ont fait pour aider dans ces expériences? Y a-t-il quelque chose que vous retenez comme particulièrement utile ou au contraire, s'il vous plaît?
Merci James. Je voudrais également remercier et féliciter les associations de protection animale, en particulier la Fondation Brigitte Bardot, qui a été très active sur la question, sur la loi contre la maltraitance animale en France, mais de nombreuses autres. Toutes les associations impliquées sur les questions qui étaient traitées dans cette proposition de loi ont été actives et ont vraiment soutenu les politiques à ce moment-là. Sans elles, évidemment, les choses auraient été beaucoup plus compliquées.
Ah. So sorry, magana World Animal Day. So akwai conference, Zoom conference da ake yi. So ni ne suka zaba daga Africa from net.
Oui, I think that's working now. Carry on, please, Monsieur Dromeval.
Voilà, et donc on peut vraiment dire que sur certains aspects de la loi, ces associations ont été ont été en co-construction de la loi sur certains articles avec nous, les députés. Des amendements qui étaient proposés par ces associations ont d'ailleurs prospéré et ont été votés. Il y a même un amendement que je souhaitais défendre et qui était proposé depuis longtemps par les associations de protection animale et qui consistait à interdire la vente d'animaux dans les animaleries, a été voté à l'Assemblée nationale contre l'avis du gouvernement. Ça veut dire que le poids qu'ont ces associations, leur position, leur soutien médiatique a été notamment sur cet amendement extrêmement important. Mais également, d'un autre côté, il faut dire aussi que la politique, c'est aussi l'art de rassembler, de trouver des consensus. Et les compromis qu'on doit trouver en politique ne sont pas des compromissions. Ce qui est parfois l'idée qu'en ont les associations de protection animale. Et je vous donne un exemple très concret. Le Sénat refusait, par exemple, cet amendement sur les animaleries. L'interdiction de la vente d'animaux en animalerie, le Sénat le refusait. Le Sénat refusait également un deuxième aspect de la loi qui était la stérilisation obligatoire des chats errants par les villes, par les communes. Eh bien, c'est vrai, nous avons négocié avec le Sénat et on leur a dit, on va se mettre d'accord et on va conserver l'interdiction de la vente en animalerie et on va prendre un peu plus de temps pour savoir combien coûte la stérilisation, combien de temps il va falloir prendre pour amener cette stérilisation, qui va le faire, voilà, toutes ces questions, où est-ce que ça se passe en priorité, voilà. Donc on a effectivement fait un compromis avec le Sénat pour garder l'amendement sur les animaleries. Et ça a généré des attaques extrêmement fortes de certaines associations de protection animale disant qu'on avait négligé les chats à stériliser dans les communes. Voilà, donc il y a à la fois un aspect extrêmement bénéfique et puis parfois des radicalités, des approches extrêmement brutales de gens qui pensent que tous les sujets peuvent se traiter simplement du jour au lendemain sans avoir à ménager de transition. Voilà, et pour conclure, je dirais que de façon générale, les associations sont bien sûr extrêmement importantes, que les quelques désagréments qu'on a pu avoir d'associations plus radicales sont assez marginales, mais qu'en tout cas, ce qui est certain, c'est que si on veut avancer sur ces questions, en tout cas en France, ça va se passer comme ça, il faut absolument que ces associations soient les plus unies et les plus fédérées possibles, qu'elles avancent le plus groupées possible en soutien des politiques législatives et réglementaires.
Merci, merci encore. C'est vrai, probablement. And finally, Ms. Metz, again, some of the initiatives like the ECI you mentioned have been NGO-led and others NGO-supported because they've been ministerial parliamentary leads. So what would you highlight as the key roles of non-government organisations, and what can we do better, following on from Loic's point?
Yes, first of all, I must be very honest. I mentioned the inquiry committee on the protection of animals during transport, and this inquiry committee would not have existed without the material, the investigations done by NGOs, by an association. They brought it to the media, they made a scandal out of the situation of the transportation of animals on vessels that were not adapted during months where the animals are suffering a lot. So they really brought it to the wider public. And I say a lot of initiatives, and also the pressure that they create, and also raising awareness in the streets, as I say, on social media, that is really thanks to the NGO. So they play an important role by investigating, also whistleblowers from slaughterhouses, etc. They spread the message, they have a lot of engaging citizens, so a lot would not be possible also regarding the petitions, indeed, I mentioned, without the multiplication effects of NGO. But what I miss sometimes, or what I would even want more, and that is really an important role you as World Federation can do, of course, that I would like to see more coordination between the different NGOs defending animals. I think they could even have much more impact if they would work even closer together and coordinate their actions. So that is something that I wish for. And then that was also already said by the colleague Loic Dombreval, is sometimes they asking too much, and then you have a lot of the rest of the people that are completely blocking. So it's really what I've learned defending animal rights and animal welfare is you have to go step by step. And also, and I found it interesting when Loic was telling how negotiating is important and to be patient. And if you are asking too much, you receive a blockade, and then you succeed, you achieve nothing. Even we, with the recommendation and the report on the transport of animals, which of course does not go far enough for me neither, but it is a step forward, and that is something that you have then also to recognize, and not saying, oh yeah, you put too much water into your wine now, so you watered it too much down. Yeah, so it goes a little bit also in the direction Loic was already mentioning.
Thank you, Ms. Metz. That's absolutely perfect. And I promise didn't set up the point about collaboration from yourself and Loic, but I think it's right. It's recognizing that value of what we can achieve as NGOs. It sounds like we're absolutely vital and more powerful coming together. So thank you for recognizing that on World Animal Day as well, to all the speakers. And yeah, a brilliant point to make, and probably move us then into questions from the audience and others. Andrea, will come back to your question. I wonder if you can ask it directly, please. Let's do that first.
Muy bien, James. Tengo dos preguntas, una para Santiago, que me complace mucho saber que está en la OMC, porque uno de los proyectos que tenemos ahora, muy en la línea de lo que planteaba Tilly y también Loic en términos de la progresividad, es la prohibición de la exportación marítima de ganado en pie. Es un negocio dramático, que lamentablemente ha encontrado mucha oposición, no solamente en el sector ganadero, sino en el gobierno. Y mi pregunta va a las restricciones que plantea la OMC para la prohibición de esta clase de comercio internacional. No sé, Santiago, si conoce, me imagino, por supuesto, que conocerá el GATT. Y la ministra de Agricultura decía que el Congreso no tenía competencias para prohibir esta actividad. Yo difiero de esa lectura porque creo que el GATT permite hacer unas prohibiciones cuando hay, digamos, consideraciones morales sobre las prácticas comerciales. Y la pregunta para Tilly es cómo pudieran de pronto, sabiendo que están en esta lucha por la prohibición o regulación de la exportación de animales vivos, ¿cómo pudiéramos de alguna manera apoyarnos? Sé que la de ustedes es terrestre, la exportación, la nuestra es marítima, pero al final buscamos lo mismo, y es que se corten las horas o que haya una prohibición o una regulación. ¿Cómo pudiéramos de alguna manera entrar en diálogo para ayudarnos y mostrar que es una lucha global?
Thank you very much, and Andrea, and maybe Tilly, can I come to you first as that question, the second question about how we join up to make this a global effort, and then Santiago, will come to you again. I don't know how much you can say in your position, but I will come to you for an answer there. Tilly, please, if you don't mind going first.
Yes, so I always try to listen to Andrea in Spanish, so I hope I understood everything because I'm learning Spanish as being chair of the relations for Central America. So how we can join our efforts and how we can really together achieve our goal. And I come back on something Andrea said before. If one country would succeed in deciding, or one region would decide, we stop the export of living animals outside the EU, for example, or during or limiting the hours the animals are allowed to spend on vessels, for example, that it would be clearly limited, which also then limits until how far they can go with the animals. Now they're being transported at some time from Australia back to Europe and things like that. So if we have their common discuss common regulation that we could succeed, and that we then also say, for example, as the European Union, we would also then ban living animals that come from more far away than that. But that is, and I look again at Santiago, we need the support of the World Trade Organization for that. What we are decided now in the recommendation on the protection of animals during transport, there is the recommendation that animals should not be allowed, living animals, to be exported exported outside the EU to countries where they don't have the same standards of animal welfare. And also, I remind you all, for those, or I tell you that there was already a judgment for the European Court of Justice, who was clearly stating that we are responsible for the welfare of animals. When I say we, I say the European Union, until destination, and not only in Europe. So when we say until at destination, that would be also outside the EU. But how to control that, etc., because on the vessels, for example, most of the time, and that is another thing that we are asking, there were no control at all anymore. And the reality is that as soon as they leave the European Union, we don't have any control, not speaking about the markets where they then arrive, those calves and etc. So we need, of course, if we have more stronger standards together that we can lay on the table towards, for example, also the World Trade Organization, the stronger we would be by bilaterally then recognizing also this standard. But there's a long way to go, and the lobbies were also already mentioned. That is something that we encounter, and that is really a strong force, is this lobbying and this agri-food industry that is, of course, lobbying to maintain the things, if possible, just the way they are. But listening to the citizens, if you listen, we make regularly polls at the European citizens. If we would listen, the Eurobarometer clearly said it's more than 80% of the people living in the European Union, they want a change. So we need really to act and do something. And that's why I'm saying we have, when we work on the revision of the regulation on the protection of animals during transport, we have to be even more ambitious, and also, of course, guaranteeing then the so needed controls, have harmonized sanctions if we would succeed already in the EU, and also clearer rules for the export of animals outside the EU. I would prefer to ban it completely, but that is why I say we have to go step by step, because of course you could also imagine transporting only carcasses, etc., but which is another problem then that comes with the slaughtering, and also that you need to keep these carcasses cooled, of course, and so on. But I'm not going too much in detail. Sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Betts. Yeah, absolutely a great answer. And again, I didn't think to stop you on the detail, but absolutely combining those. We've had a good audience question that's come in linked to this as well. But first, Santiago, if I can come to you, and I know this is a very big technical question, so please do keep it short and not get into detail, and perhaps can connect you both up, you and Andrea up afterwards, please.
Thank you, James. And I think I'll address this question in Spanish, if it's okay. Senadora, un gusto conocerla y bueno, frente a la pregunta, lo que le diría es, y aquí me pongo mi sombrero de asesor legal, estoy en un periodo de transición entre trabajos, así que todavía no soy oficialmente OMC, lo seré en noviembre. En efecto, la regla general es que no se debe prohibir la exportación de productos. Y por supuesto el animal se entiende como un producto. Pero sí, como bien decía la senadora, hay excepciones. El artículo 20 del GATT establece una serie de excepciones que incluye aquellas que sean medidas necesarias para proteger la moral pública, que es el primer inciso. Hay un segundo inciso, que es el B, que habla de las medidas necesarias para proteger la salud y la vida de las personas y de los animales. Entonces, por supuesto, digamos, hay formas de cómo se puede diseñar una medida para que sea respetuosa de las normas OMC, incluido el GATT, y que de alguna manera esté protegiendo los valores sociales que se quieran proteger. Ese es el propósito real de ese artículo de excepciones. Entonces, como sugería James, de pronto, senadora, si quiere, quedamos en contacto y podemos conversar más en detalle.
Perfect, thank you. And yeah, maybe we can almost imagine another webinar or event on this issue. Everything we're touching on could be its own one. This is so interesting, and we're skirting through these topics, but it's about bringing them all together. And actually then that brings us on to one of the questions we've had from the audience, which is what strategies, or what specific strategies can be established to unite synergies between the panelists, given the common interest in the welfare or well-being or rights, but the welfare of non-human animals, please. I'm forgetting basically what I need to do as chair, which is think who to come to first. Does anybody want to come in on that question? How can we, there's clearly a shared concern for animal well-being. How can we bring that together and learn from each other and connect where we need to internationally? If nobody wants to come in, as Tilian Santiago you've asked already, Honourable Garbadati, can I come to you, because I know have reached out to other countries, and clearly you're collaborating with and working with people from a variety of countries. How do you think we can better unite across the panelists and more widely to work together, please? Honourable Garbadati, you might be muted.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. So I said the process has started already with the conference organized by World Federation of Animals. At least we are bringing people from different continents who are involved in animal welfare issue, in policy, in legislation. And I think some of the conferences I've attended in Ethiopia, Ghana, really broadened my knowledge on the issue of animal welfare. And it's that knowledge, that collaboration with other NGOs and charity organizations worldwide, we are understanding this issue better, and we are trying to make it to be an important issue in our legislative and policy making in Nigeria. Because the challenges we are having, people don't take so much interest in the welfare of animal. Even though some of these items were banned, but there is no any legislative framework that will tame this trade. So I'm sure with this involvement coming together of different speakers from different continents, I think it's a good step forward. The advocacy should come to Africa, especially in Nigeria that has one of the largest population. So animal welfare has not been given any importance. The only important thing about the animal welfare is the only decree which was signed by the military administration then. That one too is to protect endangered species. But wildlife, what we are trying to do now is, because donkey is not a wildlife animal, but it has a utility value that it has to be protected because it's also facing extinction. So I think coming together like this will help. I'm sure when like the time I now came to Africa, Animal Network for Network for Animal Welfare, I took them to Minister of Agriculture. We discussed at length, and that's exactly what we are doing. I was also with him in Kenya early this year, and we shared our experiences with the Minister of State for Agri in Kenya. So all these things were facilitated by ANAW and other animal charity organizations worldwide.
Brilliant. Thank you, Honourable Capodati. And I'm conscious of time. Did anybody else want to come in on this question? It feels a big question. I know, Andrea, your question touched on it, and Tilly and Santiago, your answers. If not, we can move to the last question. I can't see anybody obviously waving to get my attention. Andrea, did you want to come in?
Sí, James. Yo creo que sería muy valioso que pudiéramos, digamos, concretamente estar en contacto. No sé cómo sea en sus países, pero en Colombia, lo decía ahora, es muy valioso cuando los senadores reciben una carta de apoyo internacional, una carta firmada por una persona representativa de un organismo, del parlamento, de alguna organización, digamos, con cierto peso en esta materia. Así que sería muy bueno que la World Federation for Animals nos ayudara a estar en contacto para poder compartir estas iniciativas, las que estamos tramitando, y poder contarles a los parlamentarios, a los tomadores de decisiones de sus países que en otro país apoyan la iniciativa que se está trabajando. Creo que esa sería una manera muy concreta, poder contar que esta lucha que damos en nuestros países no es una lucha aislada, algo que se nos ocurrió, ¿no? Que los derechos de los animales es algo que estamos intentando defender en nuestro país, sino mostrar que es una lucha global y que tiene además un fundamento científico, un fundamento sanitario, y que hay profesionales y personas muy estructuradas detrás de estas iniciativas en otros países. Creo que esto sería muy valioso, por lo menos en Colombia tendría un alto impacto. James, muchas gracias.
Thank you. Perfect. And again, then for the WFA, something we can help, especially helping our members to elevate and make those connections, as well as connecting here. Tilly, I wasn't sure if that was your hand raised. Oh, it's gone right down.
It was a small hand indeed, but it's sure that, for example, if I understood well, so Colombia did now not, or is the vote still coming on the ban of transporting live animals outside the country? That would, as I said already, be a very strong signal also for Europe. For example, if you have a country of Latin America, that would also be an inspiration for Europe. And the same thing regarding animal testing. If I say that the United States, for example, regarding testing on animals, they are discussing, and they quite decided at one moment that they stop the animal testing on mammals. So that would be a strong sign also to Europe. You are lacking behind there. So, and I think it's very important, maybe also through your World Federation of Animals, that we can really connect regularly how we advance in different topics, and also about best practice. For example, at one moment also Loic explained that they had a way found not to have to listen too much to the lobbyists of the hunters, for example. At other places, we're speaking about bullfighting. It's also important how we avoid, or how we don't confront those discussions. Yeah, but it's a tradition and you want to attack our tradition, etc., etc. So I think we could also have a platform for exchange of good practices. And I think the Honorable Gabi Daoudi has it probably a hard work, because I don't know, and that was one of my questions also to him, how supportive, and he replied partly to it already, how supportive the citizens are. At least in Europe, I must say, there we have a large support for animal welfare, animal rights from the citizens, but it must be much harder in certain countries where animals are a little bit like treated at some places, maybe more than products, because it's just not part of the culture, or the raising awareness was maybe not so strong, or maybe you have other issues, because a lot of people always say, yeah, if you can talk about welfare of animals, first of all, you have to guarantee the welfare also of the human being. So it's a lot of subjects that we can discuss together and exchange on strategies, also how to reach more animal rights and animal welfare at the different levels that we are fighting.
And thank you, Ms. Metz. I might, Honourable Garbadati, before you answer that question, just conscious of time. Loic, I saw your hand was up on the previous question. So did you want to come in on that working together? And then I'll turn to you, Honourable Garbadati, just for an answer on that last question. And then we'll need to finish, I'm afraid. So Loic first, just because that was the order on the last question, please.
Oui, merci James. Non, j'ai levé la main puis je l'ai baissé parce que je partage l'avis de Tilly et je pense qu'il y a un véritable besoin de la part des parlementaires en particulier, et pas uniquement, mais des parlementaires, ceux qui quand même font les lois dans les différents pays, de savoir de connaître, avoir des informations récentes sur les avancées et en matière de protection animale, de conditions animales dans les différents pays et les voies et moyens qui ont été utilisés par un pays ou un autre, ou par une association ou une autre pour aboutir à ces résultats. Je crois qu'il y a là, et c'est bien sûr le rôle de la WFA peut-être de faire cela, de fédérer et de partager ces informations. Je crois que là, il y a vraiment quelque chose d'important, d'intéressant à faire. Identifier également, comme vous l'avez fait pour ce séminaire, les parlementaires qui ont pris des positions régulièrement dans les différents parlements au niveau international sur les questions animales, et puis ensuite animer ce réseau avec des informations très concrètes, des avancées dans les différents pays.
Brilliant, thank you, Loic. And I'm really conscious of time, but Honourable Garbadati, I think, is still with us. We can't see you, but hopefully can hear you. Ms. Metz had that question on the public support for animal welfare. If you can just quickly answer that, and then we'll need to finish, please. It might be then we've lost Honourable Garbadati, in which case we probably still need to close on it as well. So the one thing I was going to ask in a few words, we've asked all our members to share their wishes to celebrate World Animal Day, and Sylvia can share a link to this. We've put as a compilation booklet in the chat box. So we've made people do it in sort of 4 words or something. What would be your wishes for the next year for animals, please? Andrea, can I come to you first on this one, please?
Oh, es tan difícil. Tal vez desearía que pudiéramos ir viendo cada vez con mayor la complejidad, o más bien cada vez con mayor claridad la complejidad de esta lucha, que no es solamente la lucha por los derechos de unos individuos aislados, sino que al final es la lucha por la supervivencia misma, por la dignidad misma, y que los derechos de los animales, reconocerlos y garantizarlos, se conecta también con los derechos humanos. Creo que cuando entendamos que esta no es una lucha aislada, sino que está conectada con la vida misma en el planeta, con la dignidad de los seres humanos y con la belleza de la vida, vamos a poder avanzar un poco más sin tantas resistencias.
Thank you, gracias. Thank you very much. And I know this will take us over time, but I'm loving these answers. So if people are happy on that, please do that. Honourable Garbadati, back with us. We were asking for a very one sentence on what is your wish for animals for the next year, please. You might need to just unmute again. Honourable Garbadati, I think it's keeping you muted for some reason.
Hello?
Perfect. What's your
Hello?
wish?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. All good. We can hear you perfectly.
Okay. I said my wish is to have a world where animals will be protected and their welfare enhanced. As was said by Tillemans of the European Parliament, there is cultural issue in Africa. The issue of poverty is another thing. So I think if we come together to have support from other charity organizations, NGOs worldwide, I think we have gone far in the enlightenment for the public to know the importance of protecting animals. I think our effort is yielding results. We have seen interest, people are showing interest. Hitherto, nobody is interested in animal welfare, that as animals don't even deserve any welfare or protection. But now people are coming to see the benefits, the advantage of what we are doing. So a lot of people are with us, they are giving us support. So I hope such NGOs can come and open office in Nigeria to make this advocate, because of the nature of the country, the size, the diversity, and many other cultural factors that are inhibiting the welfare of animals. So I think these are some of the things I think we should do. We hope World Federation of Animals will come and open an office in Nigeria to make this.
We might have just lost Honourable Garbadati, you on that, so I will turn to the others. And as I say, I'm conscious of time. I've done terrible chairing, but it's all been so interesting and good. Santiago, can I come to you next, please?
Thanks, James. Well, very concretely, and I would say that most of it's inspired on what has been said today in the panel. I would say that maybe that the protection of animals and of animal rights stops just being a well-intended initiative, but that the vast population and especially policymakers start looking at it as a responsibility. If that's something that changes, if the mindset changes, we're many steps forward. So my wish is that this stops being seen just as a well-intended initiative, but as a responsibility.
Nice, thank you very much, Santiago. And Loic, can I come to you for your single sentence wish, please?
Oui, je rejoins ce qui a été dit précédemment par Santiago. Je pense que l'opinion, les politiques se saisiront véritablement de ce sujet, de la condition animale, de façon sérieuse, quand ils auront en face d'eux une véritable cohérence, une véritable solidité, une véritable fédération, une véritable union des différentes associations de protection animale qui seront capables, sur certains sujets au moins, de dépasser leur propre intérêt pour être sur l'intérêt général des animaux et en avançant groupés, c'est mon souhait pour l'année à venir et pour les années qui viennent, en avançant groupés et fédérés et unis, eh bien, les choses avanceront beaucoup plus vite parfois que ce qu'elles n'avancent aujourd'hui, parce que du côté des politiques, on le sait aussi, cet éparpillement, ces très nombreuses associations de protection animale servent finalement le fait de ne rien faire parfois dans certains pays. Donc je crois vraiment que cette fédération est absolument importante et essentielle.
Merci. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. And finally, Ms. Metz, please.
Yeah, I'll be very short. One of my wishes was already said. So not only nice words and nice papers, but concrete actions for animal welfare and animal rights. And then secondly, I really wish that we talk more from the children on. So as Mandela said, the strongest weapon we have is education. So we should learn the children from the smallest age on where that the food that they eat, where does it come from, and also that animal are sentient beings, not with cruel images, but just show them where does all this come from. And then last but not least, I hope that the NGOs and the citizens keep on the pressure. That is very important for more animal rights and more animal welfare, because the conservatives politician will move if he sees that is something that the electors really want. Then at one point they also change and support some measures they didn't maybe believe in the beginning.
Perfect, and a great point to end on. Muchas gracias, merci beaucoup, and thank you everyone. I'll close quickly just to say it's been an exceptional event, absolutely informative and inspiring. So thank you to all the speakers for your insights and ambitions, and sorry for having to keep moving us on because there's been so much to discuss. Thank you to the interpreters, thank you to Sylvia and WFA colleagues for organising it so well. Thank you to everyone for attending and listening and for everything you do throughout the year, and good luck with your wishes. Happy birthday to the Honourable Garbadati, and to everyone, happy World Animal Day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay.
very much.
Muchas
Have a nice
gracias.
day.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Merci.